Are you waving at us?
Oh, what does that mean? Great, that guy. You used to have black hair.
I got yelled at by Mr. G. Yeah. What?
What time is it?
11 o'clock.
Yes.
Did you know my buddy Richie Class?
Yes.
Yes, we met before.
Before he passed away,
They got some students of mine who should be coming.
and Rich came up to me.
Him before some time.
He said, brother, you don't want to do your lips.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
At the ceremony with the honor. And then I talked to him after that. Because yeah, he goes, I think I might be just cancer.
Okay.
I just love Richie. He's so crazy.
Oh.
He's the only man I knew could point with his lips because his lips are
I saw that.
Yeah, well, how is it? Show me. Scoop on your horse.
Two dogs.
How did you get that name?
It's Daryl. We won't say that in a crowded room.
When I like.
I think we'll give us a couple more minutes. It tends to be that there's a couple people that come after start, and I don't want them to miss it, so.
Well, if you do miss it, you can always go on YouTube and
We are recording it tonight.
I did a documentary on you. It's all in depth.
So you,
I think maybe we should email back.
YouTube has a documentary on you?
University of Kentucky. University of Kentucky did it.
Okay.
I don't know where.
Weren't you the one too, Indian in the covers?
And then there's a play that I wrote on Little Boy Lost, Stupid India. And the university, I was on university speaker series, so that's on there.
Someone did an interview with you as well.
Yeah, that was the document.
Okay, okay.
And you were Oneida.
Got someone coming in right now. And then we'll get started. Ben, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah and I am the Adult Services Librarian here at McFarland. It is a pleasure and an honor to introduce to you Lewis B. Clark III, also known as Two Shoes. I'm very excited to hear about his life and how he has written it into his poetry. I would also like to say thank you to Beyond the Page, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the Madison Community Foundation for helping us be able to have him come and join us. As many of you probably know, it's the McFarland Festival this coming weekend. And part of that, there will be a land acknowledgement ceremony happening on Saturday at 11 a.m. at the Larson Gazebo Park. Be on the lookout for a Thistle article on Thursday for more details. So, yes, it's all you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Now listen to the words that come before all else. We bring together our minds and give thanks to one another, so be it our minds. It's nice to see young people. I mean, you're the ones, you're our future. I'm old school. We bring together our minds and give thanks to the Creator of all, for it is the Creator who has brought us together as one, so be it our minds. These are the first and the last lines of the Oneida Thanksgiving prayer, and I think that it is appropriate to begin each endeavor by giving thanks to the Creator. 40 plus years ago, we, my wife and family, left our home on the reservation to go to college. We had a plan, but life got in the way, and now 40 plus years later, we have returned to our homeland. Basically, about 1978, I ran in the ditch on the way to a gas station, and a car pulled over, and I thought they were going to say, "Do you need help?" Instead, they said, "Do you want to get high?" And I thought, whoa, maybe if I stay around here, it's not going to be good for my marriage. So I went home, talked to Debbie, and we decided to go to college down in Oshkosh. So we moved and went to college there. Before I start, I wanted to invite everyone up to Oneida, my new old home, to visit. Go to the Oneida website, the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, and come for many things that we have to offer. We have Apple Fest, where we didn't have it this year because we had special things, but at Apple Fest in August, you ride on an old-fashioned trolley to the orchard, then you ride a horse-drawn wagon into the field and pick your apples if you care to, or just enjoy the atmosphere. And then you return to the parking site where the community has come out to present horse shows, petting zoos, and games, food, and history, lots of history. It truly is a wonderful experience where everyone is welcome and there is no admission fee. Or come to Harvest Fest in the fall, which is October 7th this year. There are hands-on demonstrations of harvesting and working the great gift from the Creator, white corn, the gift that we, the Oneidas, brought to Washington's army in 1778. We brought 600 bushels. We traveled 200 miles to bring them to the soldiers at Valley Forge. When Congress was slow approving funds, imagine that. We join in the picking, the chucking, the weaving, the roasting, grinding, and my favorite part is we all get fed for free. So everybody who comes gets fed. It's hamburgers from our own grass-fed beef that we raise on our farm and we sell to the public if you are health conscious about your diet. Or come and visit any of our other community projects. You are always wonderful, always welcome, and it is a wonderful place to be. Hello, or Sagoli. My name is Louis Clark, Louis Vincent Damian Clark III. I am of two worlds. Am I okay? Okay. My father's people were from Poland, and my mother's people were here waiting for them. I am one with the people of the Standing Stone, the Onondaga. You know us as the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. We are members of the Iroquois Confederacy, a union of tribes that was prominent from the Big Water, which we now call the Atlantic Ocean, west to what is now called the Ohio Valley, south into the Cherokee lands of Georgia, and north into Canada. The 5 original tribes, the Mohawk, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and the Oneida, and then the little brothers, the Tuscarora. The Iroquois call themselves the Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse. I am of the Bear Clan, we are the artists, and we are the storytellers. I was introduced to poetry in the early 60s, the 1960s. A moose named Bullwinkle from Frostbite Falls, Minnesota, who studied at What's-the-Matter University, better known as What's-the-Matter U, and a flying squirrel named Rocky introduced me to Robert Louis Stevenson and How Would You Like to Go Up in a Swing So High? And then Longfellow's Midnight Ride of Paul Revere was shared by Sister Isaac in the 5th grade. 1th by land and 2th by sea, and I on the opposite shore shall be. Followed by Kipling's If in Sister Jean Patrice's 6th grade. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the world and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And I was hooked. Also, I was probably a bit arrogant because I said, if a moose and a squirrel can do that, then certainly I can. I started writing poetry in the 6th grade. 6th grade boys write poetry on the reservation inside of a Catholic school. They get beat up a lot. But there is poetry in the air on the reservation. It calls to me. It called to me. I can hear it in my head and I can hear it in my heart. I was schooled in the art of storytelling by my elders. Through a blue haze of cigarette smoke around the kitchen table that served as our campfire, a world was open to me. Sometimes from deep inside of a beer bottle, brandy bottle, or even a cup of Sanka coffee, stark truths were shared. I will share some of them with you. On the 4th of July in Oneida, during my memories, Indians would gather. Indians from all over the world would gather at the Ball Diamond, located just one good baseball throw west of the Holy Apostles Church in Oneida, Wisconsin. And here I have to thank him and his tribe because the Menominee, we had to go ask the Menominee to learn how to do our traditional dances because we had forgotten how by the 1940s. But teepees would rise like the phoenix being reborn. Tents, logs were sitting, campfires could be seen outlining the baseball field. Gathered around home plate would be the drums. The drums, not the white man drums that you hear on television. No, these drums were Indian drums, beating boom, 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 like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of my nation. They beat all day and they beat all night. And to a little Indian kid inside of his bed, those drums that I heard in the distance, they made me feel secure. So I wrote this poem. It's called 4th of July in Oneida. Off in the distance in my memory, I hear the drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. The heartbeat of my nation that sounds this time of year. The drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. White man's Independence Day, Old Glory waving clear. The drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. Father standing tall and proud on his breath, a trace of beer. The drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. My future, my past, my hopes and all my fears. The drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. My wife, my children, my whole heritage to hold dear. The drums, the drums, the drums drawing near. If you notice, I play with my pen while I'm talking. If you do get to see me on YouTube on the university channel, I look like a mad scientist because I kept going like this. So now I'm trying to use a pen. Does everybody know Langston Hughes, the great black writer? I was taken to, I don't even know what it was, but it was all these writers. And I got to sit with all these famous poets. And I asked my editor, I said, what are we supposed to do? And she goes, I don't know. We've never been invited before. So I was the first one that got invited. It was, you had to have a ticket to get in, and they had all free food, all free alcohol. But for the writers, you couldn't have any. So yeah, I sit there and talk with people. And my wife had a blast. She got all these free books and everything. But I wasn't getting any visitors from the black community because it was all different races there. Until they came up to me, and my editor grabbed one and said, can you talk to me? And they asked me what my poetry was like. And I said, like Langston Hughes, the great African-American poet, said he heard jazz when he wrote. And I hear drums. And that's all I had to say. And then they all came to me. And so my book's been all over the United States and as far as Malaysia. So, oh, and I got a letter from a bishop in Poland. So also my dad is Polish. At one time in our history, Indians were encouraged to leave the reservation, to become white, if you will. During World War II, my mother rented herself out as a domestic for room and board so that she could attend high school off the res. She learned many things. Some of the things she learned were really annoying for little boys like me. We had dinner at 6 p.m. each night. The other families had dinner at 5 p.m. Our silverware was arranged just so where we had to eat from the outside in, and our little finger was supposed to be up when we were having tea. The other kids were already outside playing, so not only was I always picked last, but I always played right field. My mother looked to the white world where success seemed that it could, by careful planning and diligent work, be gained and measured. She did many things, accomplished many things while the men were off fighting World War II. She received the award from Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife, for a drawing that she did. She came all the way to Green Bay to present the award. Mom also played baseball on traveling teams throughout the Midwest during the war. She was left-handed hitting, right-handed outfielder. Then the boys came home. She was pushed to the back of the bus because she was a woman. And because she was an Indian, she began to disappear. So I wrote this poem called 1944. I wish that I would have known you back in 1944, when dreams lay all before you, life was knocking at your door, when mundane moments of memory were orchids bursting into bloom. I wish that I would have known you, but glory fades too soon. I saw your pretty picture, I heard the many stories, vested fully in your prime, you reached for greater glory. Eleanor came from Washington to acknowledge your talent in art, and baseball, like a league of your own, earned a place within my heart. Your beauty was more than youth, with your cat-like eyes of gray. Childlike innocence filled your soul when you led your children to pray. Once upon a time, before dreams crashed to the floor, I wish that I would have known you back in 1944. She married my father during a 3-day leave from the Navy in Chicago in 1945, the year the Cubs were in the World Series. In 2016, my first book was published and the Cubs won the World Series. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm rooting for the Brewers. I'd like to see them win the championship just once. What is the smallest room at their stadium? The World Series trophy room. My father, after fighting in World War II in Korea, looked to the Indian way of life. He was in 42 sea battles. He never talked about them. He said after being all over the world that the white world only made up about 10% of the population. He said that life in the circle seemed better than on the linear plane, which European culture forced upon us. He also said that if your belly is full and you are warm, everything else is a bonus. Little boys don't always understand. And I wrote, Papa, Papa, oh Papa, I remember your tattooed arm with mother's name written green in the skin wrapped around my chest. Timing my breathing to yours so the beer in your belly wouldn't nauseate me as you blew it upon me. I dreamt of escape. Counting your fingers like a convict counts the bars of his cell, waiting for a time my sentence would end. I struggled against the warmth you tried to show me in love. It was all about love. I was just a kid, and even now I can't judge your lives. They both survived the Depression, World War II, the Cold War, sea battles that were never mentioned because we received this war record in 2015. They lost 2 children. Mom was a talented woman, but at the time there weren't a lot of doors open for her or for many women. Mom and Dad made things the best they knew how, I believe. The next time a Clark was born was, basically I was, oops. You know, Neil Diamond's Hot August Night and the leaves hanging down and the grass on the ground smelling sweet. 9 months later, there I was, April 1956. Their lives were set at the time, so my grandmother raised me for maybe the first 4 years of my life. It was a freedom that I can never recapture, and I wrote this poem about growing up with peanut butter and shiny quart paint cans, Spam, instant coffee, but without indoor plumbing. I wrote this poem about being scared at night. It's called The Outhouse. On the worn path with the blanket of summer to cover us, Mother Nature held little boys' secrets as we ran in the night. But came the snow, that old trickster lady betrayed our confidences, exposing our fears along the path. Grandma would tell us of her sorrow, painted in yellow snow. We moved into the heart of the Oneida Reservation in 1960. My grandma told me to be nice to the Indians. So I sat on the sidewalk by the store and I asked people if they were Indian. I was going to be nice to them. I got hell for that. But what did I know? Everyone looked like people to me. Mom and Dad were totally into the new environment. You know, the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. Okay, it's called 1960s. His and her kimonos. Hopefully you never have to suffer the indignity of your parents wearing a kimono. A moo for my mom. A moo for my mom. You know, you guys remember
Oh,
those?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nixon wants the White House. A Khrushchev has the bomb. Dina was drinking every night, singing words of love, crouching low beneath my desk. Are bombs falling from above? We used to have to hide behind the desk in case the nuclear bombs fell. Tasting crackers that had no taste, race riots in the South, headed to Chicago on an oleo run. Daddy said, shut your mouth. The fool, he won't notice. The smart man, he won't say. Friday night piano lessons, my Bonnie rolled away. Gin inside the goblets, whiskey in the den. Mama tasted brandy, a nightmare now and then. Everything's laughs and giggles. It was all for fun. No one was supposed to get hurt till we came undone. Sometimes the sound of a little slap echoes through the years, haunting generations wrapped in bitter tears. The gossip of a Christian lady who didn't know love at all made spectral shadows in my life, and happiness I can't recall. Then I was to learn that I was an Indian. No one had told me that I was an Indian. I had no feathers, no scalps hanging on my belt. I didn't talk like Tonto, Kibo Sabi. Talking with my cousins, this is how many of us learned that we were Indians. The poem is called First Grade Lessons. I was flat on my back getting hit in the face when a young man informed me what was my race. I was bleeding and crying, but I couldn't agree. I didn't look like anything I saw on TV. I didn't have a pony. I only had a cat. My daddy didn't wear a loincloth. Thank God for that. I never smoked a peace pipe or burned someone at the stake. I was just a little kid. Oh, for heaven's sakes. We thought that we were people, my relatives and I, living, breathing human beings until the day we die. But religion called us savages, heathens, if you will. They paint our faces mascots like animals that you kill. That's the way it always is, the way it's always been. But what about this Jesus? What color was his skin? At my school, baby Jesus was always blonde-haired with blue eyes. It was interesting. Time went on, 1968. It was a dark, stormy night, as Snoopy would say. But yes, it really was a dark, stormy night. There was a noise, perhaps a scream, the type of scream that pulls you questioning from your sleep. In the state of living, you begin to question everything. The poem is called 12-Year-Old Boys. 12-year-old boys brings a smile to your face if you ever were or hope to be a 12-year-old boy. 12-year-old boys aloft in their dreams, invulnerable, immortal, and then, once upon a midnight scream, 12-year-old boys awaken into men. Dreams shattered, innocence scattered, mother battered, another piece of the pie for 12-year-old boys, when innocence dies. And then I heard the scream again. 50 plus years later, I could still hear the scream. The poem is called Silent Night. A shallow cry heard over again like an echo from the fallen house of Usher. A protector's cry, one never written in the lines of heroic novels, but heard in unwritten lives. I retreat inside my covers like a turtle inside his shell. I feel the cold gray hand of fear clutch my throat like a master clutching his whip to kill all freedom dreams. Then the silence that holds you like a cell door, standing like a warrior who stands when beaten, wanting to die proud. I explode into their sacred sanctuary and see what no child should ever see. Their humanness bleeding on the floor, swelling like bruises upon her face. He slinks away in shame. She covers herself the same, and I am left alone. What do you say? What do you do? The sun comes up, you eat breakfast. And then I wrote reality. Lord, I don't want to be a warrior. I dread the thought of pain. My silence is mistaken for bravery, like teardrops in the rain. No one can see the thunder. No one can feel the night. I never want to be a warrior. I was always forced to fight. So I read, and I sang when no one was around. I was one of the early perfecters of the air guitar. And I wrote poems, I wrote stories, and I wrote songs. The thing that stands out here is that I could share these things with my Indian friends, my hopes, my dreams, and they didn't share my words. They didn't make fun of me. But I was going to a white school, and when I shared, I was laughed at because the white world didn't seem to think that people's dreams and words were sacred. I attended a Catholic school on the reservation, but I was the only Indian student. So I was involved in a few fights, and I wrote this poem from those memories. As a human being, I knew that I was supposed to stand for something. I probably did a lot of I know I did a lot of stupid things, said things I shouldn't have, got into fights that I shouldn't have, and probably hurt people when I should have known better. I wrote this poem called Playground Bully about a certain individual who for a time enjoyed using my head as a trampoline. Someone would grab me from behind and hold me down while this individual jumped up and down with his knee on my head. This may explain a lot about my thought process that I consider a great sense of humor. I just hope and pray that in my need, never-ending fight to fit in, that I never became that bully. I know that I cross boundaries now and then, but I owe a debt of gratitude to the bullies that beat me. They made me see that I never want to become them. And I just want to interject here that when I was always being chased, they always caught me. So the Brewers are going to be caught because the Cubs are chasing me. The poem is called Playground Bully. My mind whispered secrets late at night under covers that hid the day's harvest of bruises, whispered softly so no one could hear. He's not so tough. I know. My salt-tasting lips washed with another night's tears, sang the mantra to the gods of fear each night, alone in bed. I know his secrets. I know his weakness, his size, his parents. Something made him different as my skin made me. I felt sorry for him. Through a hair-clenched fist, I beat him each night, but he beat me each day. Then our union collapsed. A guardian angel hit him, and I wasn't worth the price any longer. I don't miss him, but I'll never forget him. It was a hard time and a hard poem to write because it happens on schoolyards every day, and it shouldn't happen at all. But after every dark, stormy night, when the dawn breaks the plain and rainbows dance in the sky, wonderful things can happen. The best thing that ever happened to me happened in high school. I saw this young lady, blue blouse, blue skirt, high heels, and the biggest smile on her face as she was walking. And you guys know what culottes are, do you? Okay, they were culottes. It wasn't a blue skirt. She was walking down the high hallway. She seemed to notice everyone, and everyone seemed to notice her. She looked like she was someone who would be fun to be around. So naturally, after building up the courage, I asked her to go out with me. Not only did this young lady have looks, charm, and grace, she also had intellect. She politely turned me down. I'm nothing else if not persistent. Some people say annoying. But finally, after a year of asking her out, her mother and her older sister made her go out with me. Our fathers worked together. Last year when I told the neighbor the story, he told me that's called a sympathy date. I've written many poems for her in our 49 plus years together. And this poem comes from our days of having a phone attached to the wall. You guys know what that is? It was a red phone. It's called Dancing with the Phone. Passions, new passions, discovered only in love's aging process, turning hours to minutes to seconds at a glance. Sweet 16, shadows, love speak. Across the years, across the kitchen floor, dancing with the phone at a glance. Sitting weary in my years, watching and smiling with a grandmother who shares my bed. Sweet 16 at a glance. Staring, passions build, she glides, she floats, dancing with the phone. Sweet 16, forever at a glance. And if you want to glance at her pictures over on that table, she always comes with me, but were you here when I said that we have 13 steps on our basement and she decided that there were only 12?
Oh.
So she's recovering nicely, even though I'm doing all the cooking, the cleaning. So, but I want to, and I wrote this poem for her because she's always been happy with the simple things. I wrote it's called Sea of Yellow. Planted in a garden of innocence and surprise, blooming in virgin soil right before my eyes. Dreams I never dared, hopes I never dreamed, dancing slowly in the night, a soft romantic scene. Played before an audience for 40 years each day, love becomes a sculptress, molding us like clay. Till in our years, our innocence, sipping just like wine, in my childlike love for her, I give a dandelion. And we all have storm clouds in our life, but she always saw me through, or she always sees me through. And I wrote this poem to her called Rainbow Woman. Here you are safe, she said without words, as pain fell from my eyes, rolling like thunder across the purple horizon, sobs muffled in a pillow. Here you are safe, her hand said, caressing gently my head, my heart. These are not tears, mumbling in humiliation. Indians don't cry. Here you are safe, her breath sobbed upon my neck, in silence of blessing, our breath united, calm like a mirrored lake. Here I am safe, in the spirit, in the love, promised in youth, held through the years. Not that she doesn't have her annoying tendencies. This year we built a patio deck. It's a 3-tier patio deck. And basically it costs about $3,500 in materials, but I did it with her and I did it. And it's probably worth about $24,000 or $25,000 because of all we put it together. But she would walk behind me with a level, making sure I got everything level. And she would like hide it, like so I couldn't see that she had the level. A 4-foot level, she thinks I'm gonna. Anyway, I love her anyway. Well, from this wonderful union, we produced 6 children, of which I am honored to say they all have received their bachelor's degrees and more, without the aid that many people think Native Americans received. We did have this blood quantum thing going on right now, and they didn't get any help from the tribe. My oldest son is assistant dean of the liberal arts college at the University of Minnesota, so that was major. All 4 of my sons graduated from Lawrence University, and they all play baseball, which is what makes me awesome. And my daughters both graduated from, one graduated from Oshkosh and one from Stevens Point. And one of our son-in-laws is the vice president of a pharmaceutical company. So he's loaded. They flew to Nashville, the whole family, to watch my grandson run in a track meet this weekend. And I got a break here. He's a freshman, and he wasn't supposed to make the team. So they had a meet, and he was allowed to run as an independent. And he came in with the second best time on the team, Division I. And now he's on the team, and he said, my whole life is going to change because now he's going to get to fly to all different places to run. So he didn't get that from me. In 1984, we purchased a home in Amarillo, just west of Oshkosh. We were like Little House on the Prairie. Right? But it was my Camelot. The house had a chimney running all the way up the side of the house, and we candy striped it, so everybody knew it was our house. One Saturday, our oldest, 8 years old, was moping around the house, and I asked why. And he explained that all his friends, 9-year-olds, were trying out for the 11, 12-year-old traveling baseball team. And because we lived in a small town, 9 through 12-year-olds were accepted. I asked him, what kind of friend are you? You should be up at that baseball diamond cheering and supporting your friends. A few hours later, he returned home as a starting pitcher and shortstop of the 11, 12-year-old baseball team. 10 years later, his 9-year-old brother followed him to be a starting pitcher and starting shortstop on the 11, 12-year-old team. There was a regular Little League program, but this was just a traveling tournament team. Some parents went to the town board and had all the 9, 10-year-olds removed from the team. After 19 years of coaching your sports, baseball, basketball, wrestling, and refereeing, and umping for both boys and girls sports, I learned that many parents make it difficult to be a kid. So I wrote this poem called Superstar. No, I'm not a candidate. No headlines will be mine. My pedigree excluded me. My star has yet to shine. I do okay at baseball games. I can't hit or run or catch. I sit the bench and play right field when they toss the ball I fetch. That was me. They signed me up for football too. They thought I'd be a star, but getting hit and hitting back, no way that I go far. Then wrestling and soccer came, it's more than I can take. Don't they know my brittle bones are often prone to break? Then Tiger Woods, he made it big, so Dad bought me some clubs, but golfing too was not my thing. At that, I was a dud. Basketball in my underwear, I guess that I did fine. Couldn't shoot or dribble or set a pick, but I was good at riding pines. My poor old dad would get so mad I never seemed to play. My mother too, she never knew that to sit the bench I prayed. I don't know when it all began. It's hidden in our history. To be a jock would be a shock, for me, a real mystery. I like to run, it's kind of fun, but I really hate to fight. If all I did was be a kid, to me, that'd be all right. My wife and I talked the situation over, and in our house we have a saying, don't complain if you're not going to do something about it. So we got some funding, put out a call for old armor uniforms. I was driving down the road one day and I saw something shiny in the ditch. I got out and it was some stainless steel metal, and we have a stainless steel shop in our town. So I put it in the car and I took it to the shop and I said, is this yours? And he goes, oh yeah. He says, it must have fallen off a truck. I said, how much do you think this is worth? He goes, about $2,500. I said, hello, my name's Louis Clark. I'm with the Alamo Baseball Association. So I got $250 for our baseball team. We lost every game, but we had a blast. There are some 9-year-olds out there that can throw over 60 miles an hour, and my best has only been 63 miles an hour. So I wrote this poem. It's called Little League Pitcher. I'm the greatest Little League pitcher, of that there is no doubt. I've never had a batter who could ever hit one out. Though I never throw no hitters, it's just not what I do. I lay the ball in easy. They hit it where I want them to. I'm the greatest Little League pitcher, of that there is no doubt. My fastball is like lightning, my changeup like a drought. I never throw a curveball, I don't think that it's a charm, and very few pro players make it with just one arm. I'm the greatest Little League pitcher, of that there is no doubt. If a batter acts like Babe Ruth, I simply strike them out. But if I see the batter really has no chance, I throw the ball and I hit the bat, and I watch the runners dance. I'm the greatest Little League pitcher, of that there is no doubt. Whenever I walk out on the field, my family stands to shout. They think it's really pretty cool. They think it's kind of nifty to see their dad in Little League, although he's over 60. During the summer, I still throw out a target. I've been throwing since the 1960s, just in case of an emergency and my Green Bay Packers need me. But 3 years ago, when Aaron Rodgers was holding out, during the Memorial Day holiday weekend, after 4 unprecedented falls during a baseball game, one of which found my 9-year-old grandson taking me out at home plate, I wrote to Mark Murphy, the president of the Packers, and admitted that this year I didn't feel up to being able to fill in at quarterback in an emergency. President Murphy wrote back expressing how disappointed the organization was because I was their secret backup plan in case Aaron Rodgers didn't report. A copy of the letter is back there on the table if you want to see it. So it's a true story. Anyway, during those 19 years of being involved with youth sports, Coach Honey, I always call my wife Honey, and the kids just call her Coach Honey. And I developed a program where all my players would play the same amount of innings per game. They would all have to play all the positions at least once, except catcher, which could be dangerous. And they would have to at least pitch at least once. The kids bought into this system completely. Sometimes the parents not so much. And I could tell you some stories, but I don't want to swear in front of parents yelling at me. I was yelled at a few times, having my best players on the bench during a close game, but in 8 years after developing the program, we went undefeated twice and we won 3 championships. That's how I believe Little League should be played. And I have written a book, it's called Little League, A Father's Perspective, but I haven't tried to get it published yet. I speak in my books of having difficulty progressing up the ladder of success, highlighted by scoring the highest on 3 tests for advancement. It took the union stepping in to give me a promotion to foreman in charge of drainage of all county, state, and federal highways in Winnebago County. And there's some pictures of what I did for a living over there on the table. With these books, you will see that part of the way I dealt with the presence of institutional arrogance was, quoting John F. Kennedy, when power leads man to arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. For what I encountered, I probably wouldn't believe myself if someone told me. 1981, I met building maintenance engineer of Winnebago County. A week later, he called me up and asked me to apply for the assistant maintenance position at the courthouse. I was in college, but we accidentally got pregnant for the 3rd time, so I had to get a full-time job. Shortly after receiving the position and working for a few weeks, Human Resources came to me and said that I couldn't have the assistant position, but I would get the same pay rate and job duties. I did electrical, plumbing, painting, ran all the computer wires, et cetera, et cetera. I just didn't get the title. Sounds funny, but what could I do? In 1984, I began applying for janitor watchman position at the county highway shop where they had a union, 40 hours a week and overtime pay. I kept getting interviewed, but never the position. HR said I gave great interviews and that I was a young man going places in the county. The lady HR director would comment that my job description at the courthouse didn't match up with the janitor's job at the highway. 1987, I was working in her office repairing something, but she left for the afternoon. In my play, if you listen to it on the radio right here, they play the Pink Panther theme. So I asked her secretary if I could see my job description. She came back about 10 minutes later and said that they didn't have the job description for my position. I went to our affirmative action committee meeting and asked why I couldn't get a janitor's job, to which the HR director became quite upset and said, I told you that your job description doesn't match up. So I asked her to show the committee my job description. 20 minutes later, she came back like this and admitted that I had no job description on the record. We always fuel up our vehicles at the highway department, and shortly after coming in second another time, I was filling up the county truck when a highwayman came driving up. You the Indian that's trying to get in here? I said, yeah. He said, the latest janitor just quit. I should get back to the HR office. Then he winked at me and said, my wife's an Indian. The HR director, Betty Davis, wasn't happy when I quizzed her about the job. But when she said if the latest person hired would quit, then I get the job, she literally blew snot out of her nose when I told her that the janitor had just quit, so I expected to get the job. The first day out of the shop, after filing my probation and signed for an outside position as per union rules, August 21st, 1990, a foreman came driving up to my work area, berated me with the most foul and racist words, and told me that I would never advance anywhere at the highway department because I was an Indian. There were a few descriptive words yelled at me before the word Indian. Little did I know that he was perhaps the only honest one at the county. Over the years, I endured uncountable Indian jokes and stories, especially around hunting and fishing seasons. Pictures of Indians describing me, drawn on various things, grotesque stuff stuffed inside my lunch bucket, dangerous positions sent into confined spaces where it was said right out, if anything happens, you're just one dead Indian. And that from a crew leader, often working into traffic without proper sign, where according to the understanding by management of the contract, that I had to do the job and then complain. Mostly I tried to just disappear. But I wrote this poem called Racism on the Job. In my dreams, I am a coward. In my dreams, I cry tears of shame. In my dreams, fear flows from my soul like water from a tap. In my dreams, I am paralyzed, inept, unable to respond. Was I dreaming today too many days when bullies rent the fabric of my being? I swallow the bitter herbs, the bitter words spat upon my soul. Am I a coward when I squash my anger, rendered a eunuch by society, protecting those I love, trading pride for honor? The funniest thing is that I would continually be put in charge of crews, but whenever I applied for a promotion, I was turned down. A foreman told me that it's not you, Louis, it's what you are. Even the state highwayman from Brown County, Henry Cook, said to me, they really think that you're a good worker, even though they didn't want one of your kind working for the county. He said they didn't understand my kind until they told him my kind, an Indian. Finally, the union stepped in and I was able to get my own crew. The question was, would I be able to get the men to work for me? I was raised to treat people in the proper way, to lead instead of drive. I had many good people work for me, Zim, Jay, Chicky, Swamper, and Rick, who they called behind his back the angry trucker. Anyway, I started reading them my poetry. You wouldn't believe how eager people are to get back to work after a break or lunch when you start reading them poetry. Still, they had their favorites, which they made me read to any new additions that we would get on the crew. The crew enjoyed that we made tiny time capsules of my poetry and their names on each job and attached them to each culvert that we installed. Everyone wants to be remembered, and their favorite poem is Drunken Cow, and this is based on a true story. I went down to the canning factory sitting on the edge of town where they pick up all the corn and sell it all year round. They tear off the stalks, the leaves, and the cobs, and they throw that all away. So farmers come and pick it up and feed it just like hay, drunken cow. It sits there in the noonday sun until it's raw and ripe. I never smelled anything that bad, not even pickled tripe. Still, the farmers go and gather it in on the checkbook. It makes no dent. They stuff it in the storage bin and leave it to ferment. Drunken cow, excuse me. Now, cats and rats and mice and dogs, they won't touch them a drop. But to Bessie and Bossy and all their friends, it's become their favorite crop. They gather together underneath the tree and munch it all the day. I do believe it's a coming trend for a cow to join AA, drunken cow. I feed it to my cows and then they grin from ear to ear. They stagger around and some fall down upon their derriere. I tell you this, it ain't no joke, though some call it a spoof. I put up with these crazy cows because their milk is 90 proof. Over the years, my crews and I received many accolades, not only from management, but from the public. The more experienced crew was called the A team, and the bosses told us that we should be called the A+ team. Later, I applied for management positions, and I wrote this poem. Pagliacci must have been an Indian. Indians are funny. Told my sister I wanted to be a cowboy. She laughed at me. Told my teacher I wanted to go to college. He laughed at me. Attempted to disappear off res high school. Kids laughed at me. 25 years of night school. Oh, lordy, cum laude, peers laughed at me. Came the big promotion. I had the highest test. Management laughed at me. I tell you now, your mascot causes pain to me and mine. The government laughs at me. Indians are funny. I also want to say one more thing about working in a racist environment. In attempting to fit in, to be accepted, to get ahead, we often become immune to what we have to put up with. I am ashamed that over the years, I sometimes let things slide. I should have always been ready to fight for my rights, but you fight for so long, you finally get worn down. Still, I want to stop here and say, in my years, I've been privileged to discover that everyone can be special. We all have talents, we all have dreams, and we can learn things from both the good and the evil. We can learn what to do and what not to do, but we all need education and understanding. If you have a dream, like my wife always says, never give up, never give in, and never miss an opportunity when it presents itself. I wrote, when my life is so busy, I never really attempted to get published. Then one day, an ad in the newspaper said, if you write, send us some samples. Naturally, I was wary, but I said, what the heck? Soon they asked for more samples, but they didn't ask for money. Then they offered to publish this chapbook, giving me 1,000 copies of payment. The book won an Oneida and Wisconsin Art Sport Award, and we've had to have copies made 3 times. It was the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, the Sequoia National Research Center, that published the chapbook of my poetry. So the first thing that we did, was I went down and bought this jacket with proper sleeves. Best poet school. And just so you know, I'm going to Oscar Wilde's home to read poetry in 2 weeks. So, and drink Guinness. Then I began giving speeches, and my daughters went down to Hollywood and they bought a tie for me that Arsenio Hall wore on the show. I didn't bring it because sometimes I have trouble with forks, and so now it's all stained. Someone said that I should publish my speech, though. Someone else said to send it to the Wisconsin Historical Society. So I did, and they asked if I would come to Madison to speak with them. And I learned that the lady that lives inside my dashboard and gives me directions has one heck of a sense of humor. We pulled up to some intersection on State Street, and the lady said, turn right. And at the end of State Street, the curb's like this. It's not like this. So I did. And I drove on the sidewalk right through campus with vendors on each side and just waved. But it took me right to my assigned parking spot. When we entered the office after the ritual pleasantries, they said, we don't accept poetry submissions. I was standing there looking like the Make America Beautiful Indian with one tear streaming down my cheek. But then they said they'd publish it if we called it a memoir in poetry and prose. My publisher, Kathy, said they were taking a chance that this would be the first of its kind. But then she winked at me and said, don't quit your day job. I want to bring more poetry out to the people. I believe poetry is important. I'm honored that Joy Harjo, an ex-poet laureate of the United States, named her latest book, Warrior Poet, a memoir in poetry and prose. How to Be an Indian in the 21st Century won the 2017 Midwest Booksellers Award, the 2018 Wisconsin Library Award, and another Oneida Arts Board and Wisconsin Board Awards. We were taken to Chicago to give a speech near a Harry Carey's bar. And not only did WHS ask for another book, but because I seemed to be the only Cubbies fan at the convention, the bartenders wouldn't let me pay for any drinks. I only ordered one for my wife. Had I known, and what it always pays to wear a Cubbies hat. The other book I have is Rebel Poet, More Stories from a 21st Century Indian. And this is also won a Midwest Book Award, and just recently another Oneida Arts Board Award. So like my wife says, never give up and never give in. Then to have a cherry added to my ice cream sundae, which the doctor doesn't allow me to have anymore. He's also taken away the 3 foundations of life: International Delight, French vanilla, potato chips, and Coca-Cola. I wrote a play, and the College of Menominee recorded the play for YouTube. My doctor always said, "You're solid." He says, "You're doing fine." And then the Madison doctor came, and I'm part of this test. And he walks in, and he says, "You're fat and you're going to have a stroke in 3 years." So I thought I'd had 3 good years left and I didn't have to worry, right? But then I was stupid enough to tell my wife what the doctor said. So now I don't get to have any of that. We now have 17 grandchildren. Faith, Danny, Julia, Liza, Addison, Cameron, Maren, Hope, Morgan, Eleanor, Harrison, Zoe, Noah, Jack, Lewis, Ollie, and Archer. And Kelvin. That's the last one. Kelvin was just born. And is any Superman fans here? Calvin, Leo, Cal-El. Okay, so I wrote this poem about being a grandpa because they all come home, and I'm not that nice a guy. I don't know why they keep coming home. What have I begun? Come, I said, slightly glum as grandchildren invade my house. I stagger around like a half-drunk clown, attempting to be quiet as a mouse. When they're finally asleep and I try to keep my sanity going room to room, flipping off lights that burn day and night, electric bills shoot to the moon. All faucets are dripping, I'm always tripping on wet towels strewn on the floor. And set in concrete, each toilet seat stands upright. Oh Lord, what a chore. To put the seat down, I'd say pound for pound is really an impossible task. Grandma says, shush. I said, can't they flush? Is that really too much to ask? The air conditioning is on and I'm almost gone out of my very old mind. The wind it is blowing and I sit here knowing each window is open I find. Then 10 pop cans are open and I sit here moping barely as they're gonna sip. And against my own wishes, I'm doing the dishes. You'd think they would leave me a tip. With this last one, my daughter-in-law is a psychiatrist. She's doing her residency. And so for 3 months, my wife and I had to come down 3 days a week and live in a 2-bedroom apartment with them and the baby and the college apartment. And for our 15th grandchildren. And we spent 3 days a week. One bathroom. Our first morning there, our son lit a candle in the bathroom. Woke up, got out of bed. Before I drove a comb across my head, I bent down to wash my face, and I heard something funny. Not ha-ha funny, but something unusual. Then I smelled something funny. Not ha-ha funny, but something unusual. I stood up, looked in the mirror, and it was a movie, Home Alone. My head was on fire. It's grown back now. Our grandson reminds me of me. Blue eyes, double chin, little pot belly. He's beautiful. I wrote A Day with Grandpa. Run, 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 Grandpa, run. Let's go to the park and have some fun. Run, run, run to the swing for a ride. Run to the merry-go-round, then to the slide. Run, 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 let's ride the bike. You on the big one, me on my trike. Run, 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 let's play some ball. I'll hit a home run, you make the call. Run, run, run to the ice cream store. We each get a scoop. Who could want more? Run, 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 we run all day. Running is fun. And then I say, shh, shh, shh. don't make a peep. Grandpa's babysitting, fast asleep. We learn lessons every day, and for some reason, people always ask me to read this poem. It's called Torn. I am torn between the wilderness of my youth and the white world we call civilization, between the freedom of the fields and the fight for human dignity, between the false comfort of apathetic attitude and the calamities inherent for having empathy for my brothers and sisters of all nations. I am torn between the false security promoted by technologies that leave us fat and swollen upon the couches of our homes, and the savage need to rebel against an authority that fails to abide by the very laws they are sworn to uphold, between the urge to close my eyes, to hide away from the injustices of the world, and the desire to plant the seeds of freedom, of justice, to watch them bloom. Please, Lord, grant me the wisdom to overcome the conflicts of my humanity and the courage to make my life meaningful. Let me say, all in all, my life really has been great. With love as our foundation, I've had a great life. There have been some highs, some lows, but because of the foundations of my family that my wife and I have established, with love at the center, we've been able to reach for the stars, and this poem pretty much sums it all up. It's called Job Jar. I meant to clean the car today, erase the wash me tattoos, destroy the evidence of birds' bombing raids, scrub Bud's last acts from the windshield. I meant to clean the car today, leftover popcorn from the $5 cinema, sunflower seed shells from a would-be ball player. I meant to clean the car today, the tic-tac-toe on the dust-covered dash, finger-painted windows, rip your stains and mud. I meant to clean the car today, but my son said, "Hey, Dad, do you want to play catch, hit a few, catch a few, pretend a bit?" I meant to clean the car today. Oh, well. I hope that you see, and I hope that I've shown you, success is really about being yourself, your voice, right? Or whatever you do it for you. Make yourself an honorable person, show who you are, your uniqueness. And really, in the end, we'll learn just how much alike we all are. And let's all work together as human beings are supposed to do to make this world as it should be, not accept it as it is, to steal a phrase from Don Quixote. My last poem is a blessed story that actually happened to me. It's called A Christmas Gift. I saw the face of God today as he sat next to me in church, his toothless grin as I held his hand, our eyes met when we said hello. The choir sang, the bells are ringing, we both turned next to pray. A little old man in a tattered coat, I saw God's face today. A certain smell drifted through the air all across the pew, so I smiled, for in my years, Jesus had his smell too. With shaking hands into his purse, he put something on the plate. A human being so worn away, I saw God's face today. I clasped his hand with hollowed eyes, he smiled into my soul. A hint of mint as he walked away. A little old man in a tattered coat, I saw God's face today. Thank you all for coming. If you want books, I promote going to independent booksellers. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it from Barnes and Noble, but I like to say go to independent booksellers because they're the ones that keep us going. I do have some here if you want to buy some. I leave you with one last thought from the book, How to Be an Indian in the 21st Century. In the long run, people will give you what you expect of them. Expect their best, but more, what you do affects people's lives for a long, long time. Better that you, like John Lewis told me, make good trouble. Thank you. Are there any questions? How did a fat old man get published? I lost 20 pounds. I lost 30, but since she started that project, we've been working on that project since June, but she got hurt, so I'm doing all the cooking. And there is some French vanilla in the refrigerator. Anything? Especially from young people. Yes.
I'm very honored to know you,
Oh, thank you.
and I'm a nominee in Potawatomi, and I went to Seymour.
Oh, that's too bad. Seymour,
64.
Then you're young. Lyle Hill was a quarterback. We were ahead 7-0, and I picked him off, and I'm running. Do you remember Lyle?
Yeah.
Lyle was a big boy, and I was a 119-pound wrestler. And I picked him off, and I'm running for the end zone, and I hear Lyle run behind me. I'm thinking, if he hits me, I'm gonna fumble, and he's gonna kill me. So I just ran out. But we won 7-0. So
And, you know, as you were talking about mascots, we were the Seymour Indians.
I know. You always lost. You were everybody's homecoming team. That's too
But
bad.
anyways, as I was looking back, you know, at that, every time I saw that mascot, I thought that was a piss poor image of Native American people, you know. Someday I'm gonna change that.
Did you change it
I
with
did.
Barb Munson? Congratulations.
I did, actually, Verona High School was the very first mascot that went down in the state of
Okay.
Wisconsin.
My son used to live in Verona.
And so I was the director of the Native American Indian Center. We had a resource center. So Verona called us to come because they wanted to take their mascot down and they want us to help them out with that. So myself, Wendy White Eagle, Ada Deer,
Wow.
and some other.
He's big name.
Some other people went with us, and so since I was the director of the Indian Center and stuff, and then they had told us what they wanted us to do, so we agreed with that. So what I told Ada, I asked Ada, I said, well, Ada, since this is a Native American issue, I would like you to say a prayer. So Ada said a prayer that day in the school.
Awesome.
But anyways, yeah, so, and then I went back to my high school reunion 1 year later, after that, and I could hear all my people that I went to school with rumbling about it, who took that mascot down, and I didn't say anything, I was laughing underneath my breath. I said, I got you all back.
And like just a few years after, Seymour won how many state championships at that time? They had never won anything before that. Any other questions?
How did you get the name Two Shoes?
It's a white name.
Okay.
Because I was working in a white world, and when you're a minority working in a white world, you gotta keep your nose straight. So I was always working. I was always where I was supposed to be, so they called me Goody Two Shoes. So I just adopted Two Shoes.
Okay,
Anything else?
thank you so much for sharing from your life and your soul and heart. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, but again, share it, what I did, I wrote it to appease me. I only wrote it for myself, and I only wrote it to get it out. And like I said, I'm going to Ireland in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna read some poems in pubs. And, I didn't write it for anybody. I just wrote it to get it off my chest, and so I can't recite any of my poems, because I don't remember my poems, because I wrote it to get it out, as an exorcism, so.
I get that, but you were willing to share it. Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah, well, who'd have thought? I mean, I was 55 years old and somebody wanted to read my stuff.
I
Right.
give you a lot of credit for remembering all your grandchildren.
Yeah.
I have a hard time remembering my wife's name.
So I'm gonna just look over here while you're talking.
Okay,
because I-
anything else? Any other questions? I mean, it's awesome that we have young people here. I went and gave a speech at some high school. I've done a lot of high school, but there was like 200 kids there, and they asked me to read that poem, Superstar. And I said, I don't know that poem. They said, well, you should, you wrote it. So then I had to look it up, and now I intruded in the thing. So seeing, yes, ma'am.
I have to just say, I'm sorry that all of you Native American and Black people have gone through all this. My daughter-in-law is Ojibwe, and I grew up in Monona, and we always had Chief Evergreen Tree come, and I don't know if you know, he was from the Dells, and he would always come. And we just thought he was wonderful, and he would
Well,
do
we are all
bird calls
wonderful.
and whatever, and then in 4th grade, I had a teacher, and we studied the United States Indians the entire year. And and I think now, we dressed in the costumes and that. And now I'm hearing that that's offensive. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
would feel very, we had no idea.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is coming over and doing this Betty White thing sometime this week on that she was in the proposal. But I'm afraid of my wife, so I'm not gonna say anything. But, what was I gonna say?
But my daughter-in-law, her mom and dad are they're in Whiter, up in northern Minnesota.
Whiter, Whiter,
Pardon?
Whiter?
Whiter, yeah.
Yeah, that's my great-great-grandfather, Joe Morrison, was interpreter for the Whiter.
Okay.
What was I thinking of? Oh, man, it's rough getting old.
You have no idea.
What was the website that you said at the beginning, the Oneida,
The play is supposed to be on Little Boy Lost, Stupid Indian, with the Prince plays by Lewis Clark. The University of Wisconsin, I'm on a website. I would just go Lewis Clark. I don't know. I don't play. The computer is beyond me. I finally succumbed and I read my newspaper on the computer. I really not very good at the computer. But I do like those music from the 60s. I get to listen to all like good music. Does anybody know who Dennis Provisor is? You do? He's the organist for the Grassroots from the 1970s. And his son wrestled for Stevens Point, and he also wrestled in the 2012 Olympics. And I've got to meet him. And it's just through all this stuff, I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people. I'm just lucky that I got to do all this kind of stuff. So never give up. I mean, if you want to write and just keep going at it, and just, you can achieve anything you want to do, but it just might take some time, If I were 35 years younger, I'd probably have a lot more fun, but now I just like to sleep.
You remind me a lot of John Trudell.
I don't know what that is. Handsome, good-looking guy. I've had a few fights with trees, so I've lost 5 teeth because of trees, and I broke my collarbone because of trees. Trees do not move.
Were you snowmobiling or what were you doing?
Well, one I just ran into with the bike, and ones that broke my teeth. I was cutting this great big tree, and it was all like this, and we cut, and one go, and I'm walking by, and she snapped and caught me right here. I did not go down. It broke 3 teeth right away, and then it broke these 2. And when I finally went to the dentist last year, the dental assistant said, "There's no record of you being here." And she goes, "When was the last time you were at dentist?" I said, 1997. And so I got a half-hour lecture on how you're supposed to take care of your teeth. And then the doctor came in, he's looking at my teeth, he goes, "Wow, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's all perfect except for the ones that are broke." So then he pulled out the 2 that are broke. So I'm afraid of doctors and I'm afraid of dentists.
I couldn't help but just feel that the whole experience of listening to you and your poetry was just so much coming from the heart that as people listening, they can't help but feel connected to you. And I was thinking that as it was just, it was like an experience of really, really,
Well, I think.
and helping us to know that we should know ourselves better.
That's what I want. Thank you. I remember now what I wanted to tell you folks. And I hope nobody's, I'm a hunter. I use single shot. But that's all I ever hunt with, is single shot. So I never actually get anything because I'm not a good shot. But the Second Amendment, if you study the Second Amendment of when it was adopted for 3 reasons. 1 was to control the slaves. 2 was about the foreign powers. And 3 was to protect against the Indians. None of those 3 things are viable now, so there's really no need for the Second Amendment. Just so you know, because it's not fun to get shot at.
And not only that, but the Iroquois Nation and his people were primarily responsible for writing some of the constitution of for what you are hearing in the Constitution.
In 1744, Ben Franklin had a newspaper, and in the newspaper, he quoted the Iroquois chiefs saying that the colonies should form together like the Iroquois Confederacy to resist Britain. But I do like Hamilton, I do like King George. King George is awesome, except for the spittle. Oh, and I've been very lucky. I've gotten to do like my life has been just good because I'm going to Ireland and London and I'm not paying for it. And I got to go to Italy and I didn't have to pay for that. So. Of course, my sister had to get divorced on that one, but that was okay. Anything else? Well, thank you. If you want a book, you can come buy some. You don't have to. I'm not here to sell books. Oh, if you're involved with teachers, tell them that my book they've got a curriculum for my book. And you can get it for free online from the Wisconsin Historical Society.
And I've got some surveys on your chairs, if you'd be willing to fill those out, and then I have some pencils back here, if you don't have a writing pencil. And then you can just keep them right here.
So I'm actually one of the teachers. I'm Brian. I am Brian. So you're the day.
So you made them.
Yeah. We're gonna go get the ice cream now.
All right.
Everything.
I brought home my sugar and I got it.